Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. I want to welcome you back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. Hey, can I just brag for just a minute? Can I get some sound effects? Can I get either, can I just get a little applause? Okay, that's good. All right, let me just get a little drum roll. Black Like Me podcast was just named as the best podcast in Madison, Wisconsin. Yes, the best. We are the gold winners. I want to say thank you to my listeners. Thank you to my patron supporters. Thank you to my engineers and my producers, the great work behind the scenes with Eli Steenlich and Jeremy Holiday, and with my manager, Don Thornton. All the wonderful people, the supporters and the guests. You have helped this to become a very meaningful and powerful podcast, and I appreciate each of you. And a special thanks to the Human Family Unity Foundation for years of support for this podcast. I appreciate you. I don't take honors like these lightly, so I want to thank the folks at Madison Magazine who put together this great best of celebration each year. I'm deeply honored. We'll put a link in the notes section so that you can see all of the winners, but just know that I'm humbled and very excited about this great honor. In light of this great honor, we're going to be doing some cool things to help you reflect back on some really key episodes that I think really helped us to get to this place. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you. I am really excited. You know, from time to time, I'll experience things in life. And I think I've got to turn this into a podcast episode. Now, it doesn't always happen when I'm around my studio. Sometimes I'm on vacation or out of the country, like I am at this very present moment. And I've got to find a small, quasi-quiet place so that I can grab my iPhone, put a microphone in it, and record some of my thoughts. So from time to time, if the quality is not of certain rants, if that quality is not up to what you become accustomed to, please know that we're not going backwards. It's that I'm really trying to capture things when I'm thinking them and feeling them, and not always wait until it's recording time. So I want to talk to you about an experience I just had, because it is experiences like the one I'm about to explain that made me want to start a podcast. Because if a credible, reputable person didn't speak about a black person did not speak about these kinds of experiences, many people would not believe that they are true. And what I've worked hard to do is to make sure that my stories are somewhat consistent with what I hear my other black people, my colleagues talk about. But there are also things that I need my black listeners, friends, allies, listeners to lean in, listen, take note, learn, and figure out how do you become a part of the solution. So let me tell you about this story that happened to me a week ago. I had a business meeting. I do a number of things, wear a number of hats. I'm a pastor. I run a couple of nonprofits. I'm a fundraiser. So I'm always in meetings, always in meetings. And so an individual who's a friend, also one of my donors, asked me to come to their home for a meeting. I knew I was going to be leaving the country on family vacation, so I thought, let's go by, let's have coffee and catch up, because this is a person I really wanted to connect with. So I pull up to their home, and I'm just admiring the Black Lives Matter, Black Lives are Sacred bumper stickers, just thinking about how woke this person is, this white person. And so as I walk up the stairs of their front porch, there's a person, a gentleman, a man walking out the door. Now, I don't, this is a morning meeting. I don't wake up looking for experiences. These experiences are not thrilling for me. They are not invigorating. I don't need more teachable moments. I feel that in some ways they cut my life short. They certainly try to mess with my joy, and it invades headspace, or attempts to invade headspace that I'm really not willing to rent out that day. But as I got out of my car and walked up to the porch, it was raining, so I was walking kind of quickly. Before any exchange could take place, there was a weird energy. Now, you may not believe in energy. You need to meet some black and brown people. You need to meet some people who have had to feel their way through life, because there are energies. So as I walked up to the porch, there was this weird energy. This guy was walking out the door, sort of held the glass door open for a second. He looked at me, and I want to say what he said to me, and I want you to know I'm not exaggerating. He looked at me up and down. That means he starts at my head, looks down at my feet, comes back up to my eyes. He looks me up and down, and he says, "What are you doing here?" Yeah, you heard me right. Even though this may not be the best soundproof room that I'm using, we are having no technical difficulties right here. He looked me up and down and said, "What are you doing here?" Now, for a split second, I thought, that question is strange as hell. Secondly, I know my friend, and this man doesn't live there. This person's younger than I am, so I'm thinking, oh, this must be my friend's nephew or something. I know it's not an in-law, because I know my friend's children. So it's not like a son-in-law or the boyfriend of one of the children. So I just sort of paused for a second, and I said, "I'm here to see someone." And then I rang the doorbell, because even though they were coming out the door, I'm not going to walk up in someone's house. This person's white, I'm black. First of all, that's rude. You don't just walk up in someone's house because the door is open. And I've got better home training, so I pushed the buzzer. By this moment, the person's still standing there surveying me, watching me to see what I'm doing. And so this shit is too crazy to make up. So then, as my friends walk into the door, I turned to him and I said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm the window washer." Still, we're having no technical difficulties here. He said, "I'm the window washer." Now listen, whatever someone does for a living to make their ends meet, I have no problem with it. But he said it with such smug indignation. I realized, well, hell, he ain't related to nobody up in his house. He's here with a sponge and a squeegee and a bucket of Windex. And he's asking me what I'm doing here. So then, by this time, my host is opening the door. And I said, "So why did you ask me what I was doing here?" And by this time, I think my guest hears enough. And so she opens the door and she says, "Excuse me," to this man, "Excuse me, this is my guest. And he is welcome in my home, and he is a guest here. Why are you talking to him like this?" He says, "Because on occasion, when I'm working on houses, people just walk up to the house and go in." What he was intimating was that while he's working on houses, people sort of case the joint and will walk in to steal stuff. Like they'll just walk right in the house once they see people going in and out. He looked at this person for whom he was working this morning and said, "Well, sometimes when I'm working on houses, people just walk off the street and just sneak into people's homes." I'm sitting there thinking, are my ears deceiving me? Did the window washer just profile me? Because I'm sure when he asked me, what are you doing here? What he pictured as the person or the prototype of someone who would walk off the street up into the house, because I guarantee you I was not in the house. I was not reaching for the doorknob. I don't know this person at this home like this. I just walked up the damn steps. I was just standing on the porch. So you can read between the lines. There's a reason why you all listen to Black Like Me. He's profiling me because he's assuming because I'm black and in this part of Madison, why would I be at this resident? Why wouldn't I have a friend there? Why wouldn't I have a colleague there? Why wouldn't I have business there? So he looked at her like, I'm helping you out. I'm trying to protect your house. You're getting a 2-for-1. Not only do I clean windows, I'm a quasi security guard keeping Negroes like this up out your house. She said, you need to apologize to my guest. And so he says, I'm sorry. He didn't go into any further explanation. He was just sort of like, all right, cool, fine then. If you just want people walking off the street. Now, as we stood there at the porch, I don't want to start my day off like this. All right. I'm about to fly someplace warm and sunny where they got nice drinks with umbrellas in them. And then even the ones that don't have umbrellas are even nicer drinks. I'm about to travel with my wife and my daughter and my niece and folks and really enjoy life and shake off a year's worth of shit like this. And hardworking and dealing with a mom and managing her care. And she has dementia and caring for a mom. I don't mean dealing with, but caring for a mom with dementia. My sister was just diagnosed with breast cancer. And so we're processing that as a family. And the first thing in the morning, a business meeting, I get profiled on the front porch of a donor. And so I try to sweep it under the rug, not because I want the guy to get a break, because some days you just don't feel like it. Some days you don't want to be that example. Some days you don't want to offer a teachable moment. Some days you don't feel like getting up in somebody's face, nose to nose, reading off your credentials, letting someone know you're out of line. And so I said to my host, it's okay. And they said, no, it's not. It is not okay. And so, and just lit into him a bit. I got to say, I appreciated the tone. That it was terse, it was strong, and it had that white privilege in it. And I don't mean that pejoratively, but it was with that sense of authority, like, how dare you? How dare you? And not only did the person insult me, but they really insulted the person they were working for, because they do this demeaning thing in front of my host, who's realizing I've invited a friend and colleague to a place for a meeting, and this is what they encounter coming into my home. This is what we do now. This is what the world has come to. You have now got to do this, not just at airports or stores or supermarkets, but now coming into my porch, you've got to explain to the subcontractor, the window washer, what business you have there. And so the friend said, no, this is not okay. And so when we went inside to sit down, I could feel the anger bubbling up, because in the moment, and this is what happens. This is what I want people to know who want to be allies or who want to understand these issues better. What happens is you go through this thing in your mind of, did I understand that situation correctly? Am I just seeing a racist behind every corner? What's going on? And then I did something that really made me mad, because it was really an off day. I mean, I wasn't really fully working that day that I had the meeting. I had jeans on and I had a zip up hoodie. So then you start going through all this stuff in your mind, like, okay, do I look unprofessional? Even if I didn't look like I was walking into a meeting at the state government, at the Capitol building, or in executive offices of a huge conglomeration. I didn't look like a cat burglar either. I didn't look like I needed something out of this person's house, but just the calisthenics, the mental calisthenics that black people go through in order to make sense of what would make them think I'm a threat, what would make them think I'm menacing, what's going on here that I need, and I needed to process it. And then I started telling myself, no, this person had no right, because I don't do that to people. I would never say that to someone. If I'm working at someone's house, I would never feel that it was my place to question anyone coming up to their house. Like, how does that become your job? Like, what about holding that squeegee equates to holding a standard of who goes into this house? What I have to really stress is that when black people experience stuff like this, it's not just the rudeness, because in some ways you can shake that off, but we question ourselves for just a moment. We question the world we live in. We question, is this going to embarrass the friend? Am I going to, who was hosting me? Is there going to be a showdown? Am I the cause for this? And I just have to stress, he didn't say, may I help you? Or, hey, I'm sorry, could you hold on for a moment before you touch the doorknob or open the door? We're trying to dry it off. I had not gotten close to the door yet. I was walking up the last step. He was coming out the door and looked me up and down and said, what are you doing here? Again, I was looking for the cameras. Like, is this a joke? Did my friend say, hey, go mess with my friend Alex? He's coming in here, and just act like a real jerk and say, what are you doing here? It made me think, I'm glad that this is not someplace in a remote area of the state of Wisconsin. I'm glad that this didn't happen in some more upper crest. Or am I saying that we're right? Upper crest. I'm glad that I wasn't. I was going to say someplace I'm not supposed to be. I can be anywhere I want to be. But y'all know what I'm saying. I began to think, I'm glad that this wasn't remote. I'm glad this wasn't a security person. I'm glad they didn't have a weapon, because the attitude was just so stank and just so accusatory. I hadn't done anything but shown up for work. And so as I was sitting there, because my host went to just say, hey, would you like some coffee or something? So they went to grab coffee for me. So I was sitting down, and then there was this slow burn of this shit just coming up, just a slow burn of, I felt like, what's her name? Miss Sophia in Color Purple. Like, when she said, every day I got to fight. I just started thinking, has it gotten to the place that every day as a black man, I have to explain my history. I have to justify my history, my stature, what I'm driving, where I live, where I'm going, who I'm with, what I want, what I need, what I'm doing. Like, just that extra oomph is weakening and debilitating. Now, have you noticed I did not call this man racist? Have you noticed that I've not accused him of racism? Now, my host did, but the thing is, that's not what I get up in the morning to do or to find. And because I continue to turn that situation around in my head to see, could it be understood some different kind of way? I've got some friends and some associates who have said, or who think, Alex, not everything is about race. And I get that. And they weren't calling me they weren't calling me a race baiter. They were just saying sometimes people who are jerks to black people are jerks to everyone. Or maybe you're a woman, or because of your sexual orientation, or because of your economic status. They're choosing why they decide to shit on you that day. Those people don't just get up in the morning and just say, I don't feel good, so woe to anyone in my way. They sort of justify, they get on my nerves, they're unnecessary, they're making too much noise. And race and gender, sexual orientation, those things do factor in. So I'm not saying everything's about race, but it is crazy to think that race does not intensify something that does not have anything to do with race. It's just someone being an idiot or a jerk. Race just seems to underscore and intensify these situations. And so I just sat there seething, and the longer I sat, the more I felt like I had eaten crow. And I wanted to say something or justify myself. I really thought, I don't want to do this meeting. I felt like going home. I wanted to go straight to the airport and go on vacation from there. And so the part that's so ugly about these situations, that of course I think it was motivated by racism, by what he said, but because you can't fully pinpoint it, the open-endedness of it, the ambiguity of it, those things are more difficult than just the blatant, outright racist acts. That's why many black people are moving to the South, because they're saying, I know where certain populations think. They say it. They act like it. Don't come over here. Don't shop here. Don't drive over there. But then when you live in certain places like Madison, Wisconsin, and you think you can live anywhere, you can drive anywhere, people don't see color. It doesn't matter. Black lives matter. And then you have experiences like this where you can't fully put your finger on it, and that's what makes it so infuriating. And so I just want to process that with you. His tone, his body language, his demeanor, all assumed that I was up to no good. All assumed that I was up to no good. Now, enters stage left my friend who's an ally. When they came back to the room to sit down to talk for this meeting, she kept saying, I'm so sorry. I kept saying, no, it's okay. But she said, no, it's not. I'm so sorry. At this point, I don't want to be pitied. I'm not going to give this man any more of my day or headspace. I really want to move on. But by the third time she said, no, I'm really sorry, I sort of felt like, Goodwill, the Matt Damon character in Good Will Hunting, when the psychiatrist played by Robin Williams kept saying, it's not your fault. He goes, oh yeah, I know. He goes, no, it's not your fault. He was like, don't do this to me. It's okay. No, it's not your fault. And then, Matt Damon, his character loses it. I didn't lose it. But the point was, I realized I was trying to protect myself from fully feeling what that was, what had just happened. And if I didn't fully feel it, then where would it go? And then do I take it out on my wife? Do I take it out on the person checking me out at the grocery store? I had to feel that a little bit, and because it wasn't going to just disappear. And so my friends started talking about, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull them to the side, and I'm going to have this discussion with them. And she asked, do I need to do anything else? I said, yes, you need to let the owner of the company know. They got a big truck outside. You need to let them know. She goes, I will do that. I will reach out to them. I will do this. And so what was very interesting is that I was attempting to sweep it under the rug, but my friend didn't want that to happen. And one of the things she said was, this happened on my property. This happened at my home. I have a responsibility as a white person to not put my head in the sand, to not run. I can't fix everything every place, but stuff that happens on my front porch with people I'm hiring, I sure as hell can do something. So I love the fact that she made him apologize. She didn't make excuses for him. Maybe he's from the rural part of the state, or, maybe it's a second chance program. She was like, I don't care who he is. And made him apologize. I love that power play. But still, when he did it, he didn't sound sincere or look sincere. I still don't think he thought I was up to any good. He didn't look contrite or embarrassed. He just looked like, she said, you need to apologize to him. I'm sorry. It was a very, very interesting moment. I believe that apologies need to be sincere. And so she makes him apologize. She does confront them. She goes out on the front porch and talks to them, and she confronts them. She's going to reach out to the owner of the company and make them know what's going on. But what I realized as she started talking and saying, we white people are walking around with these attitudes. People have put in our heads that we're better. We are justified in thinking what we can do and what we can say. We don't even always check it. And so she was just sort of talking out loud. But what I realized is, because she didn't sweep the situation away, or allow me to, or just sort of laugh it off like, what a crazy world. She stayed there for a moment. But as we stayed there, her resolve to address it, her resolve to apologize, started absorbing, if you will, some of the angst and frustration I was feeling. I'm here to talk and conduct business and to talk about how we continue to work together to do good in the community. Your work, her foundation, my organizations. But what I realized is the more we talked about it, the more I felt this sense of absorption, that part of this was being absorbed. And I acknowledged it, and she said, that's not your work to carry that. That's our work. Again, she stressed this happened on my property, in front of me. And we as white people have to confront this shit when we see our people doing this. And I got to tell you, it worked. It helped. That sense of absorption, I didn't want to walk home with it. The fact that she was owning that and taking the lead on it was really, really helpful. So it makes me ask you, Black Like Me podcast listeners, what's the role or the purpose of allies when crap like this happens? You don't have to have a cape flapping in the wind with a great S for superhuman on your chest. You don't have to be the race police, but something will inevitably happen on your watch. Someone you know, someone you're related to, someone you are connected with, someone you work with, can and will say something to you, something to your friend. Something will happen in or around your property or at your office or in front of your team, or something will take place. What's the response of an ally? And it's manifold. And so I don't want this to be prescriptive, but I do want to give you some ideas. I'll start by saying what you don't do. You don't white-splain it away. You don't white-splain it away. Well, this is a small company. It's so hard to get good help. I'm sure he didn't mean it. This is what happens a whole lot. My sister had a situation with her work being destroyed at MoMOCA, which is a Mattis Museum of Contemporary Art. When she challenged something egregious that happened, the response of some of the board members and some of the folks was, I'm sure that's not what she meant. I'm sure that's not what she's saying. You don't do that, because what that implies is that we as Black people are crazy and we're just making this shit up because we have nothing better to do, that we have nothing else in life going on, that we just want to go around just trying to find racists behind every door. So don't white-splain it away, like what they might have meant or what you're sure they didn't mean. I like the fact that my friend didn't ask, should I make them apologize? Should I talk to them on the front porch? I'm glad that she took some ownership, because you know what? She didn't get successful in life by being dim-witted. She made good choices and good decisions with good timing. She knew how to handle that situation. If she wanted to handle it, she wanted to, and she did. So don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. White people have not gotten where white people are in the world by delaying good decisions, timely decisions. Do what's appropriate. And so I appreciated that. Don't change the subjects to protect yourself from the embarrassment of that moment, because then your colleague or your friend who's Black, in this case, will become upset with you because you're trying to belittle the moment, thereby belittling the person who experienced that moment, just to make yourself feel protected and not feel embarrassed. And so feel that with them. Feel the hideousness of that moment, and that this person is probably sitting there trying to figure out what happened and what did I do to deserve this. And if you just jump right into, hey man, how about those Packers? You jump right into the next thing. That's really insulting. So you don't have to fix it, but you can stay there in that messiness with that friend if they're of value to you. The next thing is, we as Black people don't always need the situation fixed, because sometimes it'll happen on an airline or on public transportation or in an Uber or at an art museum, and it's not your place to fix it. But sometimes just acknowledging it is helpful. Like, oh my goodness, I just saw that. They never say that to me. Listen, I'm gonna ask for the man. I'm gonna say something, or I don't know what to do. And I don't need you to tell me. I just need a minute to just sort of get this together. Because many times white people are shocked in the moment as we are. And just like I'm trying to figure out why this really happened, white people don't really want to believe that white people are really walking around doing this kind of shit. And so they're trying to get their minds around this. But my friend didn't want to miss a moment to show they could be an ally and be a part of making this world better. And so, but if it's a scenario where you can't necessarily fix it because these are not your contractors, there's a way that you could sit with your colleague and friend in the space that absorbs it a bit. And sometimes just being able to say, did you see what I just saw? Did you hear what I just heard? Was that odd? Yes, you're not crazy. That was racist as hell. And they never say that to me. Me and my white friends come in here every Wednesday night. They never say that. They never check that. They never ask that question. They never take our credit card before we check out or whatever it may be. Sometimes just acknowledging that is really, really helpful. And so helping to absorb it when it's within your power to do so. Do you call the owner of a company? Do you say, listen, my company does business with you, and until I get an apology, we're not doing business with you anymore. See how the owner responds. If the owner goes into white-splaining, well, we got to do a better training. So what kind of training do you do for people to not be an asshole and to not look someone up and down and ask, what are you doing here? When they come up to a house you don't own, you're just there for 2 hours cleaning their windows. What training is that? I've run a small business for 30 years. I'm just thinking none of my HR manuals talk about how you train people to not do that. And then what an ally can do is use that authority and power. Well, since you don't respect me and the feelings of my guest in my home, then you don't respect my money. So don't come to my house anymore. Let's discontinue our conversation. I'm going to let my friends who I've referred to know how you're responding to this, because it's not the owner's fault per se, but it is the owner's responsibility how they react to it. And so I want to talk about this scenario, talked about it, getting it off my chest, because I just want people to know I'm shocked when these things happen, because I don't get up thinking this is reality. People will just say, this is because of Trump, this is because of the Republicans. Folks have been saying this shit to black people and to me on and off, regardless of who or what is in the White House. Let's stop acting like this is new stuff. Yeah, people may be, may emboldened to say it, but in some way, somehow you're going to act upon what you already think. It may not be as overt, but people have been acting on what they believed in this country since people of European descent have been in this country. And so let's just acknowledge that this piece is real. But I just wanted to voice it because I like the way my friend stepped in, would not let me sweep it under the rug, would not let me step out of the awkwardness of that moment, because I had to feel it in order to know what I was shaking off. Because if I didn't acknowledge it, it would have gone someplace deep inside me and I would have carried it, and it would have been this aggregate pain. By not letting it go deep, by continuing to apologize and saying, is there anything else I should say or do, or just letting me sit there while she took the people to task, that helped me, because I didn't want the responsibility of managing my own feelings and then managing their reactions to what I was saying. That was helpful. And I think that that's something really powerful that allies or people who want to be allies can do, because I did absorb it. And when I left that place, when I finished that cup of coffee in that meeting, I left not feeling like the weight of the embarrassment or the anger of that moment was mine. I felt that somehow it was shared and it dissipated because that ally helped to absorb it. So I just want to share that with folks, because I'm sure you want to know, what do I do in moments like these? I've noticed that people who have adopted cross-culturally are more aware of these kinds of incidents, and they're torn, because you don't want to believe that people who look like you would say and do things to your children or in-laws who don't look like you. And so many times you're caught like a deer in the headlights, which is a term we use here in Wisconsin because we get lots of deer in headlights. Could they really be thinking this? Could they really be saying this is a child? Did my child's teacher just say this? And so these things really happen, and we need folks to step up. And I want people to at least have an example of some things that are done right by allies, and not just what people are doing wrong. This isn't just a story about what this guy said to me, but it's also a story of how a friend and a colleague, a person who said they're my friend and colleague, a person with a great big Black Lives Are Sacred sign, acted like that when my life and my mind and my personhood wasn't treated or respected. When I walked into that porch, this friend lived out their yard sign, which doesn't always happen. If your actions don't outlive or outperform your street signs or your yard signs, you either need a new yard sign to say, I don't give a damn, or get a better attitude. But this is the time to stand up for what you believe is right and so true. So I believe that this is for someone. Well, I want you to lean in. I want you to listen. I want you to repost this. I want you to share this with someone, and not your Black friends. Like, does this happen to you? I want you to share it with your non-Black friends and ask, has this ever happened in front of you? Have you ever left a situation, a work party, a situation, and asked yourself, did that really just happen? Did somebody really just say that? Is that really what they meant? You know, this particular episode, this discussion, rant, whatever you want to call it, epitomizes really the beauty, the strength, and the purpose of Black Like Me podcast. On one hand, I'm committed to celebrating the brilliance and Black excellence that is on display every day in our nation and in our world. But on the other hand, for the non-Black people who listen because they want to understand better, they want to become allies, they've adopted cross-culturally, married cross-culturally, loved cross-culturally, and they want to understand things better, I've created this podcast for you. And so I'm going to use this particular discussion as a way of going behind the scenes so that you understand the sentiment and the true energy behind things like this. So I'm often asked when I talk about things like this, well, how do you know that it's race-based? Like, you know, the guy could be really just vigilant and wanting to be careful for his boss. How do you know that it's race-based? Really, I'm only asked that question by non-Black people, specifically by white people, because Black people know the look, the up and down look, sort of the smug, arrogant look, the look like I'm in charge and you aren't. And let's be honest, if this were my first incident, my first rodeo, I might say, you know what, you have a point. But since this is probably the 20th or 25th episode or time where this has happened, you get to know the feel. And I just want to stress, not that I need to justify it here, because this is my podcast and this is my experience. So I'm not justifying it. I'm just going to greater lengths than I normally would to help people to lean in and to really understand this. That when this takes place, you begin to think about all the other times you're on an airplane and you're bumped up to first class and you go to use the bathroom because it's safe to take your seatbelt off, and the flight attendant looks at you and says with sort of a half smile, should you really be here? And I was asked that on a Delta Airlines, and I think just the incredulous look on my face caused her to say, oh shit, there was one sitting in 4D. How did I miss it? And then, of course, she got out of my way and then started bringing me all kinds of drinks and stuff afterwards, because I could tell she was embarrassed because she thought I was trying to pee in the wrong class. As if. And so when you go through this, when you live this, when you prepare yourself for this, when you respond to this, you get a sense of what it is. But again, what I want to stress is, even if it's not race-based, so many other episodes and so many other experiences have been that you don't know how to shut it off. And so because it is and still an open case, your mind is trying to wrestle with what was the impetus for this interaction. What caused this? Why did this take place? And so I don't know that it was race-based, but my host thought it was. And I'm sure that I fit a profile that this guy thought might just walk off the street right up into someone's house. And that's ignorant as hell. If it's a strange house and the doors are open, they're being cleaned, why would I assume that no one is home? Because I see a car in the driveway. And why would I assume that the owner didn't have a pit bull or a bat or a gun or a club or a black belt? And so even if I wanted to take advantage of an opportunity, what would make that person think that I'm the type of person that would walk off the street and do that? What has been his experience? And how did I line up with that profile in his head? It's the profile that I'm really wanting people to get at. The next thing I want to stress is that this is really bred out of a late 19th century practice when the U.S. government legitimized the policing of black people, black bodies, by white people. That when slaves were emancipated, so to speak, and even towards the end of slavery, any white person had the right to walk up to a black person and say, "Show me your papers. What are you doing out here?" without any white supervision. It was their legal duty. It was written into law. So not only did you have the police, the sheriff, the deputies, the constables, whatever you want to call them, you had everyday white citizens taking it upon themselves to ask black people, "What are you doing here?" And that if it's too many in an unusual place, it sparks a call to the supervisor, to the management, to the police. Hence the rise of the moniker Karen. White woman in America who, upon realizing or suspecting that black people are someplace they shouldn't be, calls management or the police or the security. I see some suspicious looking people. I see some people standing around. I see people in the pool. I see people on the golf course. I see people sitting on the hoods of their cars. I hear people playing loud music. People are grilling where they shouldn't be. But it really grows out of this sense of how white people have been entitled. Black people don't get up during the day and think, if I see some people from a different nationality sitting together, laughing together, smoking together, drinking together, barbecuing together, we don't think, oh crap, let me call the police. Because we know that doesn't always work out. And so favorably, or we'll be in situations where I've seen this happen with my sister, where a woman had an unleashed dog in a park that requires, it's a city ordinance, that dogs be on a leash. It frightened our children. And so she got into an altercation with the woman about putting her dog on a leash. This is before we knew what a Karen or who a Karen was. This was, about 20 years ago. So my sister called the police. The police came. Now, if a police comes to a call, they should say, "Who are you? What do you look like? Because I want to come and ask you questions." The police pulled up and went straight to the white woman to ask her what was going on. When my sister said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm the one who called you because my children were frightened by her dog that wasn't on a leash," he began to tell her, "Well, she said," because why did you first of all go to her? Secondly, why would you assume she's the one who called? And thirdly, why are you telling me what she said when I'm the one who had the grief? I'm the one who was, voicing a grief or my grief in this issue, or had a grievance, I should say. And so we're not quick to just pick up the phone and just say, there's a group, there's a gathering, there's a party, there's a dance, because why? And so, but this right was given to white citizens. It helped people to feel good about whiteness. It was a benefit of whiteness. You might be poor and a sharecropper, but you could call the police on me. You might be poor as hell, but you had the ability to have the backing of the county sheriff, the courthouse, the legal system on your side. with just a mere suspicion or an eerie feeling or an inkling. And so when these experiences happen, when black people talk about people were following me around the store, can I help you? Can I help you? Or leery about letting you see certain items behind the counter because either they think you can't afford it or you're going to smash and grab, or they hold on to things while showing them to you. This really happens. Now, I'm not saying it should happen to anyone, but I'm not 13 when I go into a store. My family is not 15. We're not asking to see an expensive timepiece, and we're 16. I mean, we have gray hair, we have experience, we have credit, we have homes, we have property, we have careers, we have notoriety. But to still have that level of policing, well, I'm not sure if you belong here. I'm not sure if you should be sitting here. I'm not sure if you should be coming in this door. I'm not sure if you should have this access. And who are you seeing again? And what's the name of the person? And do they know that you're coming? This is real. This is absolutely real. And so when this situation took place, I was shocked because of where I was. I was shocked because it wasn't an airport. It wasn't an office building. It wasn't a resort. It wasn't a special VIP section. It was the front porch of a very good friend. And so emotionally, I wasn't prepared for that type of interaction. But this has really grown out of a sense of entitlement that's rooted in whiteness, that's legalized by giving people the right to ask people, black people, brown people, what are you doing here? Speak the language. Should you come through that door? Do you have a right to be here? Why are you using the side door? Who told you about this extension? That's just a real thing. And I think the last thing I want to say is that when you're in a situation like that, your pedigree does not matter. When in a lot of cases you'll see something happening to someone where they're incognito, you don't know who they are, and you may ask them, "Can I check your packages?" Or before you leave the store, "Can I see your receipt?" People will say, "Do you know who I am?" I mean, I've been in places, you've seen it on television where celebrities and stars are saying to people who stop them, police, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?" I don't have enough time to say all of that. I've got an advanced degree. I've taught at the White House. I mean, go to alexg.com and read my bio. I've given lectures or done research or been part of leadership groups on several continents. I'm a known entity. I'm a published author. I'm now the podcast host of Madison's favorite podcast, among other things. In that moment, it doesn't matter. In the moment, the dude didn't give a damn where I got my doctorate, where I got my undergraduate degree, what I do, what I built, where I live, where I travel, my family, what I've written, what I wrote, what I read, who I know. None of that matters. And so you walk around in this world where in the right context, I'm easily recognizable and I'm respected. I'm stopped all the time. "Are you Dr. G? I'm taking your history class. Are you Dr. G? I listen to your podcast. Are you Dr. G? I've only seen you on the videos. I've never seen you in person." And they're very nice and I'm very cordial in response. But in the wrong context, I'm potentially threatening. And I'm not sure how Carl, quote Carl, that's my male version of Karen, is going to respond to that. And so I'm on the defensive because you don't know what's going to happen next. Now, my host was there. She was coming to the door. I didn't feel any physical threat. But, I've got a cousin who likes to camp. And sometimes he camps in rural Wisconsin areas and remote campgrounds. What happens when Carl is the gatekeeper at the campground? What happens when Carl is the den leader of a Cub Scout group your child wants to get into, or the coach of a soccer team your child wants to be in? Because Carl is not just cleaning people's windows, and I need people to understand that. Carl does not just clean windows. Carl operates. Carl gives colonoscopies. Carl does appendectomies. Carl checks your eyes. Carl is a psychologist. Carl wields power, and Carl has lots of money. Carl frequents the White House and on occasion occupies it. And so as we're processing this, I want you to understand. Don't just listen to the podcast for the icebreakers, for the cool guests, and so that you can be a white fly on a black wall, listening to what's happening in Black America. Don't just listen and not do something. Don't just listen. Lean in and understand, how did this happen? How does this continue to happen? And why do I not know it happens? And more importantly, does it happen to Black and brown people I know and love? And if in that same situation, would I have acted as decisively and authoritatively as Alex's friend? These are just things you've got to think about. I want you to lean into this, and I want you to use it to make you a real ally. Isn't that why you listen to this podcast? Not so that you can just listen to Black people and laugh. Don't you want to be on the right side of history? I do too. So do something very useful with this, including clicking on my Patreon link and becoming a supporter of this podcast if you have not already done so. Subscribe so that you get it. You can do that by going to alexg.com. You can write a comment or review on the podcast. That would mean a lot to me. Repost it and explain why it was important. I create this space and I tell these stories because I believe we can do better together. Have a great day.
Black like me. Black like me.
Now, I've got some special shout outs to the many talented members of our ever-growing production team. Eli Steenlich, who produces the show and handles all of our social media. Don Thornton, my podcast manager, who keeps things running smoothly and arranges all of my interviews. Jeremy Holiday, who edits the podcast. Corey Saffold, who created this year's theme music, and Marcus Fleming on the vocals. And of course, Jakesha Hunt, who is responsible for our fabulous new podcast merch.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.
Black like me.